everybody said that was an impossible thing to do. I put on 3 Supreme Court justices. Very few people have had that privilege or honor. And they are terrific people, and they happen to believe that Roe v. Wade should not be there. It's been now brought back to the states.
The view is now that we have abortion where everybody wanted it from a legal standpoint, the states will determine by vote or legislation or perhaps both, and whatever they decide must be the law of the land. In this case, the law of the state. Many states will be different. Many will have a different number of weeks, or some will have more conservative than others, and that's what they will be. At the end of the day, this is all about the will of the people. You must follow your heart, or in many cases, your religion or your faith. Many people have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade.
This is Michael Popok with the Legal AF Hot Take. Donald Trump, as you just heard, is trying to bring the country together. He's trying to bring the country together by endorsing the 21 states that ban abortion. In particular, most of them ban abortion starting after the day after the 6th week of a pregnancy, when most women sometimes don't even know that they're pregnant. Donald Trump, as you just heard from that statement, believes it's a states' rights issue. Each state has to look into its heart, if it can find it, to determine whether a woman has a right to choose. That's Donald Trump's solution. He at one time said that his having selected the Supreme Court justices that gave him the majority and allowed them to finally overturn Roe versus Wade in the Dobbs decision 2 years ago in March, ripping away the constitutional right of a woman to choose that had been enshrined in the Constitution for more than 50 years, considered to be super precedent, never to be disturbed. Donald Trump got the numbers by putting Amy Coney Barrett on there, along with Gorsuch and Kavanaugh, who joined Alito and Thomas to overturn Roe versus Wade. And then you saw what happened next. In less than 2 years, we now have 21 states ban abortion, most, and the vast majority of which, including now Florida, come May 1st, start banning abortion on the day after the 6th week of a pregnancy, even though all medical knowledge and science says that the fetus is not viable until the 24th week. Only a couple of states have embraced what Donald Trump earlier in his campaign said was his view, that there should be a national right, or in his view, a national ban on abortion, but only at the 15-week mark. He said in interviews that he thinks that that the people are coalescing around 15 weeks. Let's see, 15 weeks seems to be the right way to bring people together. Ban abortion after the 1 day of 15 weeks. Except that completely ignores the reality, which is almost every state that has touched the issue is at a 6-week ban, including Florida, which, as I said, starts on May 1st. The states where there's a 6-week ban, as of right now, after the Supreme Court stopped protecting women and the right to choose, include North Dakota, South Dakota, Indiana, Missouri, Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Mississippi, South Carolina, West Virginia, and Florida. 2 states embraced Donald Trump's compromise of 15 to 18 weeks. That's Utah and Arizona. And 1 state is in the 12 to 13 week mark, and that's North Carolina. So again, the way Donald Trump thinks you bring people together is that you deny a woman her fundamental right to choose concerning the most intimate decision that she's going to make in her life, which is whether to carry a fetus to term, or whether she's going to be compelled to give birth by a state. A state, and ironically or not, tragically, a lot of the states that I just mentioned in our divided country over abortion rights, many of those states have high infant mortality rates, which usually comes from poor nutrition and poor parenting training prior to a person giving birth. In addition to high mortality rates, they also have a tremendous amount of children living in poverty and a tremendous amount of abandoned children who, though technically up for adoption, are in foster care and in other places and aren't adopted. Same states. It's almost a one-to-one match, with a few exceptions. Now, the result of not having a national right, not the national ban that Donald Trump is proposing, but a national right, is that you have a country who is divided very similarly to the way the country was divided in the Civil War, when the issue that drove the country apart then, social issue, moral issue, was slavery. Now you've got effectively 29 states that allow abortion beyond 6 weeks or 15 weeks or 18 weeks or without limits. And you've got 21, the red states I just identified, who don't. Meaning, let's put the numbers aside and look at the human tragic toil or toll that these laws place on people. This means that people in the states I just identified will most likely have to carry their child to term. And since there's very few in these states I just identified exceptions for rape or incest, they'll have to carry their rapist's child to term, their incestual, being a victim of incest, that child to term, product of that. And very few states, even the ones that allow for an exception under medical guidance or two doctors getting together to sign a doctor's note. Reality is that because of our liability systems and the criminality that a lot of these states like Texas have also imposed on people who participate in abortions, lose your medical license, be prosecuted, even the mother be prosecuted, even under a Texas law at the time. Very few doctors, I hazard to say, are going to get involved, are going to want to be that doctor that has to sign that doctor note to allow that abortion and then have to answer to the attorney general of their state related to it. That's asking for a level of courage I don't think naturally exists in our political body. And so, to hear Donald Trump, as I've suggested on other hot takes, that the Republican Party, the MAGA Republican Party, completely kidnapped by MAGA, that they have to use wedge social and cultural issues in order to get elected, especially in general elections and in national elections. It's obvious. You're watching it. The fact that we have to talk about on this hot take at the intersection of law and politics, that Donald Trump is using the abortion right or ban to run on as a platform is an indication that will be a major campaign point for his presidency. And the way to punish politicians and those that are not in line with your morals or your ethics on this issue is at the ballot box. There's no other way to put it. Abortion and a woman's right to choose is on the ballot in November. Let me repeat that. Abortion and a woman's right to choose is on the ballot again in November, along with the presidential candidates. In Florida, there literally is a ballot referendum to amend the Constitution of Florida to incorporate a woman's right to choose. For the next 9 months, from May 1 until that referendum, and then January, if it were to pass, women in Florida are going to be in the trap of having a 6-week ban in place. And that is a tragedy of epic proportion. The amount of women in these 21 states from now until January and beyond that will have their life trajectory changed, that will have their life course altered, and not for the better, who will have children born into poverty with potential low birth weight and high mortality rates, with little or no social programs to support them in many of these states, and low education and high child poverty rates is beyond heartbreaking. And the way we can do something about it, which is why in Legal AF we sit at that intersection of law and politics, is to talk about these issues. They're tough. They're hard. It's not fun. I don't look at my day agenda when I'm thinking about recording hot takes and go, oh, I can't wait to have to talk about Donald Trump's mean-spirited, heartless position on abortion again. But we need to. And we have to do it here. And have a coherent, meaningful, morally centered conversation about what we want for a country. It starts with who the president is and who the president picks for the Supreme Court justices and who the president picks to lead the Department of Justice and their Civil Rights Division and their Criminal Justice Division and their Election Fraud Division, right? And their units in the FBI and the Department of Justice devoted to protecting a woman's right to choose, that if she gets an abortion, she's not harassed. I mean, I just went by one in my local town, a family planning clinic that either gives advice and or provides abortions in my state of New Jersey. And there were just these group of, I can't even put it another way, white, over 60-year-old men yelling and screaming at people that were passing by, and obviously anybody that tried to use the services of that clinic. And it is mind-numbingly thoughtless and un-American to attack a woman and her right to choose. And for the men out there, women didn't get there by themselves. You know, they are not to blame in a lot of these circumstances. And yet they're the ones that have to suffer the degradation and other emotional impacts, negative impacts of having to go through the abortion decision in states where they can't even do it. And why anyone who's running for the highest office in the land would want to create a society where women are unequal across our 50 states, I have no idea. Think about it. 29 states allow it. 21 states effectively ban it. I mean, 6 weeks is effectively a ban on abortion for many, many people, especially low-income people. You know, rich, wealthy women, you know, can go travel to another state as long as their state, like Texas, doesn't try to criminalize that. And the Supreme Court's going to have to deal with whether that is an improper regulation against interstate commerce. We'll leave that aside for a minute. But right now, you got 29 states that women have that right and 21 states where they don't in a United States of America, allegedly. Right? And the women in those states might as well not live in America, the ones that can't get abortions, because they are not living under the same equal protection and due process as their fellow women in other states, primarily the northern states and the blue states. And we don't talk enough about that. The failure of women to obtain equal protection under the law, especially when it comes now to abortion rights, now that the Supreme Court has abdicated its responsibility to protect women. But we'll do it here on the MeidasTouch Network, where we talk about the hard things. On Legal AF, podcast I co-anchor on Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then on hot takes just like this one. We sit at the intersection of law and politics and talk to you like this, and then bring it all together in a podcast we call Legal AF, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and then on audio podcast platforms of your choice. So until my next hot take, until my next Legal AF, this is Michael Popok reporting. Heary, heary, Legal AF Law Breakdown is now in session. Go beyond the headlines and get a deep dive into the important legal concepts you need to know and we discuss every day on Legal AF. Exclusive content you won't find anywhere else, all for the price of a couple of cups of coffee. Join us at patreon.com/legalaf. That's patreon.com/legalaf.